Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. And we are meeting once again with lecture 26 of Business English. Well, we are reaching the end, alhamdulillah. And today's lecture is going to talk about some aspects of job interview that we couldn't discuss so far. And it will also provide you with the guide to prepare for the interview. And we are going to have our workshop where you will be preparing yourself with me for a job interview as a freshman or a fresh graduate. And like always, we have our listening activity that includes our language expansion exercise as well. And this activity is about job interview too. And the interesting thing is that it's going to be a part 2 of what you did in the previous lecture. So let's talk about job interview once again, refreshing your understanding of what we covered in the previous lecture. We learned how to identify skills that we require for a job. Well, everyone has hundreds of skills, yet most people can only identify a few. Duties are the basic functions of the activity, and skills are the tools used to accomplish the activity. So, skills can be broken into 3 categories. As we discussed, occupational skills, performance-based skills, and transferable skills. Now, what is this occupational skills? Any professional skills that are related to the job that you're going to apply for or that you are qualified for are basically your professional or occupational skills. These can be any, like customer care, customer services, typing, engineering, or whatever field you belong to, whatever field you are qualified for, whatever field you are going to serve in will work as the field as your profession. So whatever skills qualify you for that field are your professional skills. However, some are performance-based skills that you use every day to get along with others and to survive. These are patience, flexibility, tactfulness. Well, these are the skills which need to be there in all of you who are going to work in any capacity anywhere, because these are the employees' skill. These are the employment skills that make, that enable you to survive in the employment world. So these performance-based skills, some people are good in them right from the beginning. Even when they go for their first job, they are able to exhibit these skills. However, some people learn them during the course of time when they get in a job, and their experience and the situations they come across, the kind of environment they work in, the kind of situations they meet, the difficulties, the challenges they go through, help them learn these skills or develop these skills or refine these skills. So, if you are the one who have these skills right from the beginning, where you are a gifted one. Otherwise, it is not something that if I don't have, I will never be able to have it. I can learn it. So, either you possess these skills, or if you don't, you can acquire them. You can learn these skills. You can develop them. Now, transferable skills is the 3rd category of the skill, and this category includes the first 2 categories. So, don't worry if you don't have the skills that you need to require for the job. That's a job requirement. You can always develop them. Now, what are these transferable skills? Let's have some discussion about it. When transferable skills are attention to detail, paying attention to detail, assertiveness, creativity, communication, commitment to task, coping up, decision making, dedication, dependability, flexibility, understanding policy and procedures, positive attitude, problem solving, record of success, team building, written communication. So these are all the skills that are transferable and that can be learned. Although some of them do have a relation with our attitude, our moods, and our nature, but still we can work on them and we can develop them. Now, how can we identify our skills? Identifying skills is not an easy task. Well, most of us feel we have no skills whatsoever. And usually we say, I was just, you see, I was just a waitress. Well, apparently, whatever job you do, may not look like that big flash job, but you have some skill that you are doing that particular job. The key is to identify that skill. And most of us, we are by nature very humble, and we by nature we feel comfortable staying in low profiles. That's okay. It's everything is fine with this understanding or this behavior, but at the same time, at least you should be aware of what you have inside, so you can talk about it. Well, now how can I identify my skills? Well, the question is, what skills do I have? How do I know? Can I take a list of skills and keep checking? Yeah, I have this, I have this, I have this. No. Unless you have some evidence that you have some skill, you cannot claim to have that one. But how do I get this evidence? Well, there is a way. There's a rule. There's a rule to go through, and if you apply that rule onto something, you'll be able to get the clear answer for your skills. And the rule is, start by reviewing job duties and identifying what skills were used. Asking questions about what they did will help, jog their memory. So sometimes we only tell, sometimes we are able to prove that we have it if we have gone through a logical way of knowing and identifying our skills. Alright, so how can you gather information? Some sample questions for this occupation maybe. Did you ever have to deal with an angry customer? You need to pose questions to yourself and let yourself answer them so you can get an idea what kind of skills you possess. And we are having this drill for somebody who worked as a waiter. Alright, so first of all, I will write down my job responsibilities, and out of my job responsibilities, I will take those words, those buzzwords out which will stand as my skills. For example, if my job responsibility says that I have to look very friendly, alright, so one buzzword is friendly attitude. I keep a friendly attitude, that's my skill. One job responsibility says that no matter how my customer behave, I have to always be patient and listen to the order and take the order. So being patient, behaving with patience is another skill that I can take out of my job responsibility. My job responsibility is that I have to be here at 7:30 and leave at 7:30 in the evening, and I'm never late. So out of this job responsibility, I can take out that I'm a punctual person. Alright, so my job responsibility says that I need to speak English with my customers, and that's what I do. So another skill that comes out is that my language proficiency, and that I'm able to converse in English with my customers. So you see, out of your job responsibilities, you can take words out to make them stand as your skills. Now, the second way of digging deep into it is asking questions. Now, what kind of situations that you come across on your workplace? If I'm a waiter and I come across different types of customers, some of them are very friendly, some of them are angry, some of them are, did you ever have repeat customers, and why? Like, I ask them to repeat things again and again, or what kind of difficult situations I come across? Going through these situations in detail, let me understand how did I behave, how did I reply to these situations, and the way I responded will help me understand more of my skills. So, first question can be like, did you ever have to deal with an angry customer? If I dealt with an angry customer, that means I have that technique of handling problematic people. And did you ever have repeat customers, and why? Well, if customers come to me again and again, what are the reasons? Did I ever think about it? Is it the quality of food? Is it the convenience of this place that they would like to drive here? Or they like me as a waiter, or they would want me, out of so many, they would want me to serve them. Why they would want me to serve them? Are they happy with me that I speak less and I do more? Or what is that characteristic that make them happy with me? So this aspect, knowing this aspect, will let me understand what is the skill that attract people. that attracts people. What happened when you ran out of a special menu item? Well, what do you think? Like, how do I deal with such situation that somebody asks for some particular dish and that is out of stock? Like, I don't have that item on menu today, but I do not want to, offend the customer because it's a very precious customer and a regular customer. I don't want to annoy him or her. Well, how do I deal with that? Maybe I can get a delivery and I can make a way to cook it, and I can, serve the customer with some kind of appetizer or a kind of a snack, and let him or her wait that I'm preparing a fresh dish for him, and I can get it from somehow. So what technique I use? If I'm able to find it out, what am I getting out of it? And I can understand that I'm dealing with a problematic situation where the product is not available. What are my ways and strategies that I'm using to handle the problematic situation? Well, did you have to balance the till, make out bank deposits? What happened when you were short, and how did you explain it? So if I have been doing all these activities, definitely they refer to some kind of skill that I possess. So most of these skills are basically problem-solving skills and customer service skills. If I'm able to understand and identify my skills, this is one way of doing it, and I talked about two different directions. However, it will not only help you identify, there is a situation that you might have already identified your skills, but this will help you, this drill will help you take those evidences out, and then if you are asked about it, how can you say that you're a team leader? How can you say that you're a problem solver? How can you say that you survive well in customer service situations? Well, this is how I can do it, and I can provide reference of my previous work experience. Now, if I have been dealing with bank and deposits and drawing money and submitting money, I'm good with money matters, money handling and communication and problem-solving things. So you can list down your qualities and then can provide them bigger categories and can see if they fit into the categories. And this is how you are jotting down points regarding your skills. You're not only identifying them, but you are collecting the evidences to support your claims. So, what other skills do you hear? If you are hearing people saying that I have this skill, I have that skill, you don't need to feel, like I don't have this skill. Who knows that you have this skill until you will find out. So find out in yourself, dig deep in yourself to know who you are, what you are. All right. Now let's, after having this detailed discussion on interview, job interviews, interviewers' expectations, interviewees' preparation, interviewees' concerns, interviewees' checklist, and so on and so forth. I hope by now we are ready to start with our interview workshop. Well, what does the interviewer look for? Before you come for an interview, you need to know this. You need to have a fair idea of what is expected and keep all those expectations in your head. Well, if you are going to do an interview, you are going to conduct an interview, and if you are an interviewer, what are the things that you will look for in your employee? Think about it. Well, if I'm hiring somebody, I would like to see the person, the candidate, a good match for his technical skills to the job requirements, or her technical skills to the job requirements, okay? And I may ask the person specific questions to see if he or she will be a good match for a particular teamwork, okay? And then I may look for some specific qualities or behaviors to ensure that the person is going to be a successful employee for a teamwork job. What are these specific qualities and behaviors? We have already discussed them in detail. So these are three major things, three major categories that you should keep in mind before you go for an interview, or even before you start your preparation for an interview, so you know which directions you need to go in to do your preparation. All right. Now, some more interview questions that I'm going to pose on to you, and now you're going to answer. Okay, are you ready for that? So far, I've been telling you questions to prepare, and I'm sure that you definitely would have thought about them and would have had your answers ready by now. Well, if I ask you, what can you tell me about yourself? What will be your answer? Well, you can talk about your skills, you can talk about your values, you can talk about your interest, you can talk about your expertise, and you can talk about your future plans. And then the main thing that should concern you, that how do you use these 5 areas to match my requirements, my job requirements, or my company requirements. Because I'm not interested how many things on the earth are possible that you can do. I'm interested how many things you can do that can benefit me. Do you understand the point? So, if I say, what can you tell me about yourself? What kind of question is this? It's an opportunity question. I provide you an opportunity. Okay, tell me, what do you offer me? So, you have to be ready to offer. So, what is an offer? That's a very sensitive matter. Well, why are you interested in this job? If you are a fresh graduate, and if you are an engineer, or you are a fresh MBA, or you are fresh bachelor's in business administration, well, the city is full of such jobs. Why my company? Well, you must be ready for such questions, because at times people are not only asking you to know how much knowledge do you have, they are skeptic, and they would want to know, they would want to have a market feedback for their position and for their company, and you are somebody, a best candidate to get the information, because you are somebody who would collect the information. And if there are 10 companies of the same nature in the market, you would know which company to go for a job. So are you coming to me because you want a job in my company particularly, or you are coming to me because you couldn't get a job anywhere else? So make sensible answer, and then considering that what can you understand are the intentions behind employer's question, answer it. Always provide some kind of feedback regarding company, of course some kind of positive feedback that, let the employer understand that you have your homework done. Now, well, what question I'm going to throw now? It's another opportunity question. What are your strengths? What makes you suitable for this job? See, I am again offering you a space to make yourself comfortable, to talk about yourself. Alright, now I am narrowing down the circle. Okay, you got so many strengths to talk about. Now let me have a word about your weaknesses. Do you have any weaknesses? What do you think? Would you like to mention a few of them, or maybe one of them, or maybe 3 of them? Now, after making you relaxed and comfortable, what the employer is doing or the interviewer is doing, asking you for something that he really looks into, right? So be careful, don't get too relaxed, because this can be a technique of the employer to make you feel comfortable and then getting back on the topic. Now, what skills do you bring to the job and to this company? Again, an opportunity question. You see, you would recall in the audio in lecture 25 when the fresh graduate he's asked about what do you offer us, or what is you bringing for the customer service, what are you bringing for the customer service job. The way he uses his educational experience, his coursework, his curricular as well as extracurricular activities to provide evidence for all types of skills that he mentions, his professional skills, his job specific or job related skills, or his transferable skills, whatever he's talking about, he is providing an evidence for that. Alright, so in the same way you can do the same, right? And of course, what is not to forget is the STAR approach, STAR philosophy for job interview. It is a way to answer behavioral question that allows for the best responses while proving that the experience is true. You talk about a situation, You talk about what task you did in that, what was your action, and what were the results. This helps you to answer any behavioral question, especially the behavioral questions starting with why, or can you describe, or will you tell me. These questions which have these particular starters motivate you, provoke you to talk about something that will enable the employer to infer what type of person you are. So STAR helps you focus and create that discussion that help the employer get his answer. Now there is one sample behavioral interview question. Can you give me an example of a time you worked on a team to finish a project? What was your contribution? So you see how many questions are there in this question. The interviewer is asking about your experience and a particular kind of experience. He's asking you if you were a team worker, did you ever work in team, or are you someone who would like to take challenge and meeting deadlines? Or then what kind of if you work in a team, in which capacity you work in a team? Are you a team member or you're a team leader? And if you're a team member, what can be your contribution? The job specific thing, the area specific aspect. So there are so many questions coupled in one situational question, and these situational questions are basically the main questions that help interviewer analyze if you are a best fit for job or not. Now describe one of the most demanding assignments you have had. What problems did you encounter and how did you solve them? Well, again a question that asks for description and demanding assignments. What do you think is a demanding assignment? Trying to analyze your approach, and what do you think is demanding for you, and then knowing the demanding thing that you have been assigned, and then what problem did you encounter? Again, if you mention some kind of problem that are very trivial, the interviewer will understand that, okay, this is what you cannot handle, and you call it a problem. If you say, well, the problem was that the people were not really listening to me, so look at the counter check. You're providing a counter check that you are not a good communicator. You could not handle the situation and people were not listening to you, and that caused you a delay. So you're not a problem solver. And if you talk about a problem and then you discuss how did you overcome that, it helps the situation of, and it goes in your favor. So be very sensitive of pointing out a problem, because then you have to provide a solution for that too. Tell me about a presentation you had to give or a project you had to do. How did you prepare for it? So again, to answer such questions, never forget that STAR philosophy is going to help you a lot. Now, answering behavior questions, one question can be that, how do I use STAR philosophy to answer my questions? Well, let me explain that again and refresh your understanding of STAR approach or STAR philosophy. STAR is that if you are asked about a behavioral question and you're asked about one skill, if you have that, how do I say that I have that? The best way of saying is involving a STAR philosophy. The STAR philosophy is talking about some situation that I've come across, or that was assigned to me, and then what was the task to be done, the goal to achieve, what was my action in that, what did I particularly do, discuss in detail the action that you took, and then what was the result of that action. And all these things are helping you to come up with that buzzword, and buzzword with an evidence that your interviewer is looking for. Here you are. All right, so look at the situation, describe the employer, location, or area where you were working to give the interviewer the big picture. You don't need to be too detailed. Sometimes providing a big picture let your employer understand what kind of employee you are and you have been. If you think that you have been working with an established company, and naming the established company will let your employer understand that you are an employee of that caliber, that you've already worked for such established companies. You name it, not too obviously, but with a subtle approach. In between your discussion, you can name your company to let your employer know that you are an experienced and skilled worker who has already been employed by such honorable companies. And then, if you think that the place you have been working, the city, the situation, the country you have been working has some prestige attached to it, like if I have been working for a government agency, or if I have been working for a non-profit agency, then if I think that the job I'm going to being interviewed for has some value for this type of thing, I can again subtly, with a subtle approach, attach this information somewhere in my talk. Now, like I worked at ABC company as a supervisor in the shipping and receiving department. Okay, describe the job or task you were assigned. Like, part of my job was to train newly hired employees in using our highly technical equipment, as well as in company policies and procedures. So what you are conveying, that you are not a fresh candidate. You are an experienced and skilled worker who not only does his or her job, trains people as well. So you are a trainer for this particular job that you are applying for. So describe the action you took. That is like what I did. Well, I showed Fred, our new employee, how to safely set up and operate the computerized weighing equipment. I also taught Fred how to inspect the packages to ensure the weight and labels matched, and I continued to ask him questions to make sure that he understood all the instructions I had given him. What you are talking about is you're talking about the job specific detail. So if you have already been teaching these things, that means you are very particular and you have your expertise in this knowledge, in this particular knowledge, and that is what you are conveying to your interviewer. Now, you can also talk about the results of the situation. Tell me the results of the action you took. Be sure to use number where applicable. Well, I checked in with Fred on a regular basis and during his initial training, and as a result he became a well-trained team member, not only in the equipment he was to use, but also in understanding how the procedures we used affected our department and the company at large. So this is one example of the STAR philosophy, STAR approach that you can use to answer behavioral questions. All right, so there are some questions that I want you to practice and write in your job practice template, job interview practice template, to remind you of the situations that you really need to prepare for your very first interview. What kind of people bug you? Well, do you name anyone? Do not name anyone if the question comes up. Talk about a specific personality type and what you do to assist your team member to be successful, because that's a normal situation. If you are a business and most of the time you're working in teams, and there are people who are very positive, there are people who are negative, very negative. However, the key lies in the way you point out if somebody's there who bugs you. So saying that nobody bugs you will not be quite a real answer. The real answer will be that do not name the person, but specify the personality type. Where in our very first lecture based on job interviews, probably lecture 23 or 24, we discussed different personality types that the experienced interviewers, they know about. So if you are forgetting, you can refresh your understanding of the personality types and specify some personality type that you find is comparatively difficult to handle. However, how do you handle that to make your team a successful team? Well, a sample answer can be, if you're asked this question, well, Mr. Hamid, do you name anyone, talk about what kind of people bug you? Talk about it. Well, I would say, on a team, I find it hard to work with people who don't seem to care and avoid the hard tasks or challenging tasks. What I found is that many times they aren't aware of the team's expectations or how to accomplish specific tasks. I take the time to check in with team members and have offered my assistance with their tasks. This results in the whole team reaching the desired goal. So you're not only pointing out at the problem, but you also point out the way you handle that problem. All right. Tell me about a problem you solved, Mr. Hamid. Well, when I was a DDS company, we purchased a telephone system for our office, and it was a computerized system. My co-worker was assigned as the administrator. She had a car accident and was going to be gone from work for several weeks. So this was the problem that I faced, and the way I solved it, my supervisor asked me to take over some of her duties, and I was not trained on the telephone system, but found a video teaching tape and her book in a file cabinet. As it turned out, I needed to make some administrative changes to the system. So I watched the video and read the book. I followed the instructions and was able to make most of the changes. There was a specific function I could not program, so I contacted the company who sold us the system. Through their helpline, I was able to complete the changes. Now look at the way the problem is put up, the procedure is talked about, and then I learned to set up mailboxes, groups, change and forward messages, and set up a time manager. These new skills made me a more valuable employee. How do you use these questions in order to magnify what you want to magnify? Well, for such behavioral and problem-based questions, you always have a problem-solving model which you can apply into your answers. Define the problem, set goal, decide on the desired outcomes that you want to take out of this discussion, want to give to your listener as a final note, last word. Brainstorm, list alternatives, consider the consequences, risk versus alternatives, decide and act and talk about. And reevaluate, did it work and what did I learn? Alright, so that's the problem solving model that you can apply in both of the situations, in the situations where you are really solving a problem, or in situations where you are discussing how did you solve the problem, specifically in a job interview setting. Alright, so now some detail about the things that you need to be careful about when you are preparing for interview. So far we have talked in detail what are the preparation strategies, techniques, ideas, and those particular things that you need to be careful about when you are preparing for interview. However, there are few things that you need to be really careful about when you are preparing for interview, because when you start your preparation, you get more concerned about your skills and your subject specific knowledge and the way you are going to behave, but you tend to ignore few very obvious and common, everyday things that are of high importance. So let me refresh your knowledge about them. Well, your first impression is very important, and as we discussed that positive first impression direct ways of the other person, the way he or she is going to perceive you as a person. So for that, to create that positive first impression, you can dress appropriately and neatly, be on time or a little early. It's always better to be 15 minutes early. Research the company. Research about the company you're going to work with, you're going to apply for the job, or you're going to be interviewed for. And you should know about your employers as well, their strengths, their weaknesses, their status in the market, the product they are selling, or all the important things about the company that you are going to be interviewed at. Be prepared with paper. Bring copies of the resume and references. Bring a pencil and a pad of paper for notes, and you never get a second chance to make a first impression, and your first impression is always the first impression. So be very careful about these things. Now, make a good impression. How do you keep up with that first impression and maintain your good impression? Speak up. Don't be afraid to talk about yourself. Listen closely to the interviewer. Show a real interest in the company and the job. Sell yourself. Tell the employer about your abilities and good qualities. Know what value you bring to the company, and answer all questions carefully but honestly. Well, be as positive as you can. Don't be in negative frame of mind. Be professional. Greet your interviewer with eye contact and a smile. Shake hands firmly if you're a man meeting a man, when you enter and when you exit. Sit up straight, look attentive, enthusiastic, motivated, energetic. Do not cross your arms. Crossing your arms tell the employer you are not interested. So keep your positive body posture. Before the interview, take a few deep breaths. Inhale through your nose and blow out through your mouth. Well, apparently this will sound like a kind of a trivial thing to do, but yes, I tell you, this is very important, because inhaling a lot of oxygen before your interview gives your body, this oxygen floats into your blood and makes you relax and calm. So it's one technique to calm down, to inhale a lot of oxygen. This will help you relax your muscles and help you relax mentally too. Do some self-talk about how you are the perfect match for the job. This is what we have been discussing. And you need to ask some questions as well. The questions the interviewer asks help them decide if you are the right person for the job. The questions you ask the interviewer help you decide if this is the right place for you to be. So don't forget your right. You can ask questions. However, be polite, be sensitive, and be wise when asking questions. You can ask the interviewer, write down at least 3 questions that you feel are important to you, and take these to interviews. And you can ask them. Don't ask questions that say, what's in it for me, or such as, when is my first day off, or ask questions such as, what did you choose to work for this company, and how will my performance be evaluated, and what is the most difficult task I'll be doing, what is the process you use when training for this position. So these questions not only help you evaluate the position for your job, but always help your evaluator to know that you are genuinely and professionally interested in this job position. So knowing all these things make me remind you some do's and don'ts that you have to be very careful about. And the first don't is, take a friend or relative with you unless you need an interpreter. Do not take unnecessary references with you, physically or on paper. Act either too shy or too aggressive. Try to keep a balanced profile, a moderate profile. Say anything negative about other people. Do not say negative things. Do not be late. Call the employer as soon as possible and explain if you are late, why are you late, and ask if you can arrange a new interview time or new appointment. And when you are closing your interview, never forget to thank the interviewer for their time. Ask what the next step will be, such as a second interview, or when are they going to take their decision, or ask when they plan to make a decision. Tell them you are interested in the job only if you are. Ask for a business card of the interviewer and send a thank you note. Well, and a quick review of the interview skills. Now we understand by now that a job interview is an opportunity to meet face-to-face to our prospective employer, to discuss our qualifications, to assess our abilities and skills, to let him assess our ability and let her assess our abilities and skills, to demonstrate our skills and personality, and tell who we are. The key to success interview is convey a positive attitude, show enthusiasm, motivation and energy, be aware of non-verbal communication, and keep eye contact with the interviewer. We need to pay attention to physical appearance. That is very important. The posture we keep, the dress code we are wearing. Be acknowledgeable of the company. Don't talk yourself out of a job. Don't keep the interviewer waiting. Respond as quickly as possible. Be prepared. Have extra resume on hand. You need to have 2 or 3 copies. Have references on hand. You need to take notes with you, the reference cards, the reference papers. Conduct background research or organization. This will help you with the kind of questions they can come up with. And a strategy, you will be able to design your strategy. Remain calm when faced with periods of silence. Well, when you face silence, you get anxiety. Silence is not always bad, but don't wait too long. Know your resume. Reread it before going into an interview, so you are prepared what kind of questions can come up. Arrive early. Once again, do not be late, because it's the first impression, and you do not want to spoil your first impression, because it's always the very first thing. Remain calm and collected. Listen attentively. Show confidence. Assess your career path. Research company and position you are seeking. Find out what type of interview it is. Develop list of potential questions and responses, and confirm date, time and location. Appropriate dress helps you, to impress your interviewer. Create a good first impression, and these are basically the steps that you can make a checklist of when you are preparing for going for a job interview. Ensure that you understand the question when you are listening to them. Be yourself when you are answering the questions. Maintain an eye contact with the interviewer. Appear confident. Listen carefully to the questions and then answer. And then bring extra copies of your documents, of your credentials. If you have a career portfolio, bring it. Ask questions. What is the organization plan for the next 5 years? What kind of work can I expect to be doing the first year? How much assistance is made available in developing career goals? And what are the opportunities for advancement? Are your questions that you can ask. Not all of them definitely, but you can ask one of them or some of them. Thank them and shake hands when you are leaving, and ask for a business card for future correspondence. Now, we talked about 4 kinds of interviews: case interviews, behavioral based interviews, telephone interviews, and face-to-face interviews. Electronic interviews can be based on either telephone or video conferencing, so they both are of the same type. However, on one you are visible and on the other you are not visible. But I made a point, and we discussed it, that when you are not visible, you are over-observed for the fact that you are not visible. So do not be easy on that. Take it as serious as you take the other types of interview. Case interview or situation-based interview, you are put into a situation, and either physically or in during discussion, and you are asked to talk about how will you come out of it. This makes me remind you of the visual comparison that you had the other day in the last lecture. Or maybe in the 24th lecture, where you watched that comparison between the boy and the girl's interview, and you saw that how they were put into a case. They were given a case to solve during the conversation. They were asked how will they react. And we already had a detailed discussion based on behavior-based interviews in today's talk. Once again, case interviews are used to assess logical thinking and problem-solving skills, and they are geared around solving problems on the spot. Classic business cases are used to test analytical abilities, logical thought process, creativity, and comfort with quantitative analysis. Now, example of a project case: if you are consulting for a major Canadian airline, every year they make more sales and every year they lose more money. What could be causing this? So you are put into a situation, and with reference to the company or the country or the type of agency you have applied to. So you should be well aware of the company you are applying to for a job. Now, behavioral-based interviews can be designed to determine if a candidate possesses certain key competencies. Now, use specific examples from work history, education, and extracurricular activities to demonstrate the skill the interviewer is assessing. So, example can be that describe the system you use for keeping track of multiple projects. How do you track your progress so that you can meet deadlines, and how do you stay focused? Commitment to task. Situational interviews are designed to assess your critical thinking, problem solving, and planning abilities, and what would you do if, often in the form of a scenario. You are put into a scenario, the same thing that I discussed earlier, that you are given a situation to talk about. An example can be that you are approached by a member of the media to give your opinion about an issue just discussed at a press conference hosted by your department. What do you do? All right. Now, behavioral versus situational based. Well, there is a slight difference, but there is a difference. Behavioral are based on your past experiences, and situational are hypothetical. What would you do if? So, situations can be in behavioral questions, in behavioral interviews. Describe a situation you encountered, or task, describe your completed task, or describe the action that you took, or result, what was the result. And this is that star philosophy that we have been discussing. However, the star in situational based is that describe a potential situation, describe task that you would complete, describe the action you would take, and what would be the potential result. So in one, your star is about the past experience, in the other, your star is about the situation you are going to come across. How would you do it? All right. Now, a word about these interviews assisted by technology. Telephonic interview, sound friendly, confident, and calm. Thank the interviewer for the call, collect your thoughts, smile, get company information, and dress up as if you are meeting face to face, because that helps you maintain your confidence and develop your confidence. All right. Now, in video conference interviews where you are visible, dress professionally, of course, they can see you, and speak slowly, keep up a pace that is, a moderate. Prepare for silence due to a 5-second audio delay, and be aware of extra movements and noises. Be patient, sounds may be distorted, and speak up and project your voice, and relax and smile. All right, now common interview mistakes that, despite the fact that whenever we go for an interview that we think that we are very well prepared, often we make some mistakes. Some mistakes are very common, and later on when we think about that, we think, why did I do it? Such a common thing, and it was a nonsense thing that I did. Well, however, based on the experience of recruiters, this is a list of common mistakes made by interviewees, and it's lack of preparation that they come up with, inappropriate appearance, they are not properly dressed up, failure to ask questions, they are not able to ask questions in the end, poor attitude that they show, they do not exhibit positive attitude, and then they exaggerate or being deceitful. They try to deceive the employer by lying about things or by making up stories. And their poor non-verbal communication is one of the major problems that recruiters complain about. That candidates are not able to project their ideas, and talk about their ideas. Over or under answering questions. At times, interviewee speaks too much, and he or she get distracted, or at times he does or she does not speak at all. The way the answer should be, they do not justify the question. So, during these 2.5 lectures where we talked about interview strategy, skills, preparation techniques, and all that, I have been, mentioning different websites and different resources that you can take help from if you want to go deep into the, if you want to go for more information on interview techniques and strategies. And these are some more, websites that can help you further if you are interested in getting more information or downloading more material for your preparation. Well, this gives me the opportunity to almost reach the end of the talk by giving you a guide that you can use for your interview preparation. Well, we have talked about types of interviews, so keep a check of that. 3 steps in successful interviewing. We will review the interview schedule, the interview guide, conducting the interview, how to develop a rapport, questioning, and interviewing review, the interviewee do's and don'ts. These are the things we've already talked about. Let's quickly talk about 3 steps in successful interviews: preparation, execution, and review. Always keep them with you, no matter if you get a job or not. Each interview is a situation for you to learn and improve. Look at this model of these steps in interview process, and this should help you always to prepare yourself to be a better candidate next time. Preparation, execution, and review process. Who are you going to interview, or who are you going to be interviewed? By whom you are going to be interviewed? Why, when, and where? What questions are you going to ask, or what questions are going to be asked by you? Structure, rapport, listen, probing, and clarification are going to be the techniques of the interviewer. Well, what results are expected or are obtained? What is the information that you are looking for, or interviewer is looking for? What are the decisions that are to be made? What are the actions expected or taken? All right, now one last bit that I would like to discuss regarding interviews is that when you are speaking during your interview, there is something happening. There is something happening in the interviewer's head. What is that? He's trying to reassure the interviewee you are listening and to gain information. Well, you can see the interviewer nodding his head, but he or she is thinking something during that time, or maybe observing some particular aspects. So these aspects can be, they might be using non-verbal cues such as head nods to show you are listening, and then that they are listening to you, or they can wait until the current question is answered before preparing the next one, or they can prepare it together. So they might be preparing a question for you when they are listening to you. So be confident if they do not respond quickly soon after you stop answering. That means that they are thinking something. Don't get panic. And they are not listening for answer only, they are listening for your emotions, and they are listening for your attitudes. And they are interpreting at the same time. And if they ask for some clarification, repetition, you need to do that, because this time they might be looking for something else. So when they are listening to you, they are doing so many things at the same time. So do not get confused if there comes in a pause or a silence or gap of time. Now, the different kinds of questions, we have talked about several types of questions, and I've given you several examples. However, there are 3 types of questions that if I talk about structure of a question, these 3 structures of questions are usually asked during the interview: open-ended questions and close-ended questions. Open questions are we have advantages and disadvantages in asking if we are asked with open-ended questions. Like, if a question is, so what do you enjoy about this role that you have been playing, or are there any other issues I should be aware of? Well, the advantage of such questions is that this puts interviewee at ease, and you can interesting for interviewee to talk about, provides depth of detail, and reveals other areas of inquiry. However, it is disadvantageous, like you may lose control while talking too much. You may use up too much time, and so be careful about that. Interviewer may appear unprepared. Well, the kind of information that you're providing may not be acceptable by the interviewer, or harder to analyze the situation that you are providing. It can be harder to analyze or to develop a relation with the kind of situation that you are in, or you cannot really you get distracted. There are chances that you can get distracted. Now, close-ended questions, which can be answered with a short answer. Is the new form better or worse than the old form? So you can come up with a short answer. Is it Mary or Jan who entered the application details, or do you stamp the form before or after the details are recorded? So these type of questions are often, they are asked to make an efficient use of time and easy to compose interview, collect enough information in the shorter span of time, and the data that you collect, the information that you collect is of higher reliability because this is short and no, you do not interpret it in detail, and the answers are already clear. However, they can be boring for you, so you may lose your control, and you may show that you're not taking interest, and so do not lose your temperament at any stage, at any point. And then the probing questions are always there, and we've already talked about the 4 types of probing questions, so I will not repeat all that again. But one thing that I will say that paraphrasing is done always during interviews, and you will find your interviewer paraphrasing information. He would say, this is what I said, but paraphrasing is done to confirm that this is the information that you are conveying. So if something comes up as paraphrased by the interviewer, do not get lost, do not get upset. He or she is just confirming that this is the bit of information that they have received, or this is how they understood as you said. Now, a quick interview of the steps and format. You can look at the screen. We've talked about these steps and the sub-steps and the bullets inside them, and we talk about the format of the interview and how do we take notes. All right, so some more resources for interviews that you can get benefited from. And with this we can end our subject matter talk, and we can start with our listening activity of the day. That is again the part 2 of the job interview that we started the last time. And in this interview you are going to have your listening activity plus your language expansion exercise based on job interview as topic. What we are going to learn in today's audio is how do we do this mention of projects, educational projects, and the internship. Being a fresh graduate who has never been into any job position, how can you make use of these credentials and the gaps that we take during our educational years? How can we use it as an opportunity to stand for us as our strength? And how can we talk about our skills, the know-how we have, and how can we convince our employer, our interviewer, to consider these as enough to hire me as a candidate, no matter if I'm a fresh graduate? And we will also learn how can we, if we are asked about our experience, how can we refer to our academic projects, and if we are talking about if we are asked about our participation and specifically about professional skills and employee skill, employment skill, how can I bring in my curricular and extracurricular activities, and then how can I develop relation of the mention with the requirement of the company of the interviewer, and at the same time I should know how can I provide evidence of my professional skills through my experience that is entirely based on my academic career so far. Well, this is all about today's audio, and now I'm going to take you to the audio to listen to it and answer these questions. It's about interviewing, and it's like interviewing is a sales meeting. And tricky part is that you don't have any experience, but still you will learn ways to highlight the experience that you have. Go ahead for the audio.
Interviewing for a job is a lot like a sales meeting. You need to sell yourself to the employer by convincing them that you have the knowledge, skills, and experience they need. But when you're interviewing for your first job, it gets a little trickier, as you probably don't have that much work experience. So you need to show the interviewer why your college experience makes you the best candidate. In this lesson, we'll focus on ways to highlight that experience and relate it to the job. We'll talk about extracurricular activities, internships, and gap years. And we'll look at ways to differentiate yourself from the competition and prove that you're the best person for the job. In today's dialogue, we'll rejoin Owen, who is interviewing for a test engineer position at IBH, an electronics company. He's in the middle of a panel interview with Erica and Cindy, two HR reps, and George, who's in charge of engineering at the printers division of IBH.
Well, now when you are done with the first part, that what you are going to listen to, look at these questions which you are going to answer and find out the answers of these questions in the audio.
As you listen to the dialogue, try to answer the following questions. 1. Name one thing Owen did for his school's robotics team. 2. Why did Owen decide to intern at LUTEC? 3. What did Owen do in his gap year?
So, let's talk about experience. Did you take part in any extracurricular activities that relate to this job?
Yes. I was on the Jiaotong robotics team for 5 years. Just getting on the team is a competition. I was fortunate to work on 2 of our 3 national championships.
Okay, but how would that make you a good test engineer?
Well, of course, we were constantly testing our robots. And when something went wrong, my teammates looked to me to figure it out. One time, we couldn't get some parts, so it was up to me to scavenge for parts and adapt them to our needs. That took a bit of patience and creativity.
I'll bet. And now, how about your internship? Your resume says you did software analysis at LUTEC Systems, but I've never heard of them.
Ah, right. Let me explain. LUTEC is a startup here in Shanghai. I was one of their first interns, in fact. I had opportunities with IBM and Intel, but decided to go with a smaller company.
Why was that?
Well, I wanted to see firsthand what launching a tech company was like. I felt the hands-on experience would be more valuable.
I see. Well, that leads me to my next question then. We see a lot of candidates with impressive grades and internships. What makes you different?
I'm open to new things. For me, it goes beyond academics. Here's an example. Like a lot of students, I took a gap year. But I wanted to use this time as an opportunity.
So what did you do?
I went to work for my cousin, who runs an electronics repair shop in California. I mainly did small repairs for individuals, in the shop and in their homes, though I did set up a couple of networks for small businesses.
Go on.
The experience taught me more about how people use products, and it helped me put faces on people who are end users.
That's interesting. And frankly, something more companies should be aware of. So, tell me why you are the right person for this job?
Well, I know my stuff. I have the computer know-how and practical experience in testing, troubleshooting, and solving problems. And there's something else I bring to the table, the customer relations side of things.
All right, welcome back. So could you find the answers? Well, yes. Mention of projects, mention of internship, gap year opportunity, and skills and know-how and job-specific experience is what that Owen did for his school robotics team, and he decided to intern at that is what he did during his internship, and that is what he did is during his gap year. And you look at how the candidate uses his gap year and the negatives attached to his career. Like gap year is a kind of negative. How he is using this negative to be his positive, and talks about his experience as an academic and academic projects and curricular and extracurricular activities and his participation to go on and convince his interviewer to hire him as a potential candidate and potential employee. Well, and then this part of the interview will teach you some examples, will give you some starters, some phrases, and some sentences to talk about beyond academics. Go ahead for the audio.
Now, let's go through the dialogue again, step by step.
So, let's talk about experience. Did you take part in any extracurricular activities that relate to this job?
Yes. I was on the Jiaotong robotics team for 5 years. Just getting on the team is a competition. I was fortunate to work on 2 of our 3 national championships.
George asks Owen whether he took part in any extracurricular activities. To take part in is another way of saying participate. And extracurricular activities are activities that are not directly related to your academic studies, such as playing on a sports team or playing guitar in a band. Owen mentions his 5 years on the Jiao Tong robotics team. This is a good choice because it's related to engineering. Owen was chosen for the team and worked on their entry to the national competition. 2 impressive accomplishments. When choosing an extracurricular activity to highlight, pick one that's a close match with the job you're going for. If you've held a significant position or had a great success, be sure to mention that, as these candidates do.
I was elected class president 2 years in a row.
I helped organize several events, including a series of lectures on risk analysis.
I was captain of the lacrosse team during my last year. We were undefeated that season.
I served as a resident assistant in one of our university's dorms.
Now, George asks Owen to connect his experience on the robotics team to the job he's seeking.
Okay, but how would that make you a good test engineer?
Well, of course, we were constantly testing our robots, and when something went wrong, my teammates looked to me to figure it out. One time, we couldn't get some parts, so it was up to me to scavenge for parts and adapt them to our needs. That took a bit of patience and creativity.
I'll bet.
Constantly testing robots does relate to the job. It's also a bit obvious. So Owen goes deeper and describes his role on the team. When he says his teammates looked to him when there was a problem, it means they went to him for help solving it. They had confidence in his ability. Similarly, Owen says it was up to him to scavenge for parts and adapt them. In other words, it was his responsibility to look for and collect parts. They may not have been the exact parts needed, but Owen found a way to make them work. His teammates knew he'd get the job done. After Owen says it took patience and creativity, George responds with, "I'll bet." This is a phrase we use to show agreement. Saying, "I bet," means the same thing. By adding details, Owen shows that he's a creative problem solver who can adapt to critical situations. And his teammates' confidence shows he can handle responsibility. All of these qualities are important for a test engineer. Anytime you're asked about your college experience, try to connect it to the job you're applying for. This is an important technique, so let's practice a few examples.
Playing violin in the university orchestra taught me about teamwork. Every musician has to listen carefully to the others.
I got valuable counseling experience when I worked on our school crisis hotline.
I demonstrated top-notch organizational skills when I stage managed our school's production of Hamlet.
When you're on the school debate team, you learn a lot about negotiation.
Next, George asks about Owen's internship.
And now, how about your internship? Your resume says you did software analysis at Lutech Systems, but I've never heard of them.
Ah, right. Let me explain. Lutech is a startup here in Shanghai. I was one of their first interns, in fact. I had opportunities with IBM and Intel, but decided to go with a smaller company.
George has never heard of Lutech Systems, which means the company is unknown to him. Owen explains that Lutech is a startup, a company that is just starting to do business. In fact, the company is so new, Owen was one of the first interns. Owen says that IBM and Intel, 2 well-known companies, were also interested in him. While that's impressive, Owen still chose a smaller company. When George asks why, Owen responds,
Well, I wanted to see firsthand what launching a tech company was like. I felt the hands-on experience would be more valuable.
First-hand refers to using an original source. For example, if your boss tells you something directly, you hear it firsthand. Owen wanted to learn about the practical aspects of launching a company firsthand, so he went to the source and worked for Lutech. Owen uses the term hands-on to describe the valuable experience he gained. He learned about the work by actually doing the work. This shows that Owen has practical experience to complement his academic background. In this set of examples, notice how the candidates use specific facts and details to explain their internships.
I interned at a daily newspaper and wrote 2 blog posts every week.
During my internship, I maintained the equipment in a medical lab.
I was fortunate to assist a fashion photographer in Milan. It was very exciting.
My geology internship took me into the mountains, where I collected samples for Dr. Patel.
Now, let's hear how Owen explains how he is different from other candidates.
I see. Well, that leads me to my next question then. We see a lot of candidates with impressive grades and internships. What makes you different?
I'm open to new things. For me, it goes beyond academics. Here's an example. Like a lot of students, I took a gap year. But I wanted to use this time as an opportunity.
So what did you do?
I went to work for my cousin, who runs an electronics repair shop in California. I mainly did small repairs for individuals, in the shop and in their homes, though I did set up a couple of networks for small businesses.
Go on.
The experience taught me more about how people use products, and it helped me put faces on people who are end users.
It's likely that IBH received dozens of responses to their job post, and it's likely that many candidates are similar to Owen in education and internships. So George wants to know why Owen is different. In other words, why should IBH hire Owen instead of another equally qualified candidate? Owen explains that he's open to new experiences and describes his gap year. Many students take a gap year, a year off between college and graduate school. Owen chose to travel and work at something that would give him hands-on experience in repair and customer service. This shows IBH that Owen takes initiative. He feels it's important to make opportunities and learn new ways of doing things. Owen also uses 2 key phrases that relate to customers. To put a face on someone means to make a connection with someone in a human way. In many industries, customers are anonymous. Putting a face on a customer can help you see just who that person is. Owen also talks about end users. These are the people who use products once they've been manufactured and sold. It's probably safe to say that the other candidates haven't spent a year in California repairing electronics and helping customers. This is how Owen differentiates himself. He shows IBH what he has that other candidates don't, and this will make him stand out. It's important to differentiate yourself in job interviews. Show the company what makes you stand out from the crowd and why that makes you a stronger candidate for the job. Let's practice some other ways you can differentiate yourself from other candidates.
I've done a lot of traveling in my life and have experienced many different cultures.
I think my volunteer work shows that I'm extremely committed to this field.
I spent my gap year studying art history. I think this helps me see graphic design from a different angle.
I ran my own business in college. It may have been small, but it was a huge learning opportunity that not many students get.
Now, Owen explains why he's the best fit for the job. The idea of fit is important for companies and job seekers. Imagine you have a pair of shoes that don't quite fit. The discomfort can distract you from what you need to do. Fit in a business sense works the same way. If a company or employee aren't a good fit or a good match, they won't be able to do their best work.
That's interesting. And frankly, something more companies should be aware of. So, tell me why you are the right person for this job?
Well, I know my stuff. I have the computer know-how and practical experience in testing, troubleshooting, and solving problems. And there's something else I bring to the table, the customer relations side of things.
George feels that companies should pay more attention to their customers. Frankly is an adverb that means sincerely and straightforward. And if you're aware of something, you're conscious of it. Then he asks another common question. Why is Owen the person for this job? Why is he a good match for IBH? Owen crafts his answer well. First, he knows his stuff. He has the subject knowledge the job requires. He also has computer know-how and practical experience. Having know-how means knowing how to do something. And Owen brings something else to the table. This means he has something extra that will benefit IBH. He's had close experience with customers, something George just said was valuable. When you're interviewing, always think about the job itself. Before the interview, read the job description again. Think about what knowledge, skills, and personal qualities the job requires. Then think of why you're the best candidate and how you can prove it. Listen to these candidates as they explain why they're a good fit for the jobs they're applying for.
I speak 3 languages fluently and can easily work with clients from different parts of the world.
I'm very comfortable with people and can handle any face-to-face transactions with ease.
My math skills are excellent, and I can complete problems with a high rate of accuracy.
I've been using database management software for years and would not need additional training.
So this was the end of the audio, and this is the end of our today's talk. What we learned in today's session, we finished with our job interview topic. We reviewed it in detail, and I'm positive and I'm hopeful that I've been able to provide you with some audio and visual examples and illustrations to prepare you for different kind of scenarios. And you could see some models of that you can follow, or you can adopt, or you can adapt. And we learned how we can, answer and deal with unexpected situations. And during this listening activity based on job interviews, we also learned if we are a fresh graduate, how can we convince our interviewer that we are the right choice, or I am the right choice, I am. So that was all for today's talk. I'll see you in the next lecture, inshallah. Allah Hafiz.